and welcome to A Cat in the Garden. Saffron and I are here today to talk to you about some of my most recent plant purchases. I realized when I was pulling all of these plants out, they are all Hoya. In the past 3 months, I think I've only bought one plant that wasn't a Hoya, and it was my philodendron Atabapoense. And you just saw me buy that, so it hasn't grown at all, so I figured I wouldn't really put it in this video, but this is going to be an update on those plants because it's so nice unboxing plants all the time, but I think it's more helpful sometimes to see how they do in someone's care over periods of time. Now, these are all plants that I've gotten within the past 3 months, but seeing how plants acclimate is something that is really helpful to see how quickly they start growing, and it's sort of a longer test as to whether or not the seller is reputable or not, because I've gotten plants that look really great when you first purchase them, and about a week or two into being in my home, they decline and I look and they have no roots. So I figured this would be really helpful just for me, maybe for some of you as well, if you're considering buying from some of the sellers that I have purchased from recently. I do have one plant that I bought in person, and then the rest are all plant mail. Now, a lot of this is going to be from Sam's Hoyas because I have purchased from him a couple of times in the past 3 months, but his plants are great. So I really think this is all going to be very positive. Actually, in the past year or so, I've really narrowed down the sellers that I typically buy from, just because they're not all created equal. Some are better than others. I will try new ones from time to time, and there's some I don't buy from as often because I have a lot of the things that they sell, but I think this is still gonna be a really informative video in terms of how these plants are doing with a few months in my care. Some of them it's only been a few weeks, but some a few months. So I will start with, I guess, the oldest ones that I have, and they are 2 Hoyas that I purchased together from Sam's Hoyas. The first one is going to be one that I was very excited to purchase, and that is the Hoya Batcave. Now, it came to me with this leaf hardening off. I am happy to say it is completely hardened off now, but it has since grown this giant vine. I am debating what kind of trellis I should put this on, because it is so long and it's growing so much. But if I put it on a trellis, I can't keep it in that cabinet anymore. So I have been struggling with that decision. I do know if I don't put this on a trellis, at some point it's going to turn woody and the new growth point will die off. So I do think that's going to have to happen. I recently unboxed some new trellises from Propagation Diaries, so I will probably end up doing that. I just also need a space not in the cabinet to put this, and I'm debating where in my plant room would be the best space for it. But I'm very happy that this leaf did not die after shipping. It hardened off beautifully. I was able to repot it into a bigger pot, as you see here. It was in those tiny cups, but it was getting a little bit root bound, and I probably repotted this a few weeks ago, and there's already some new root growth right here. So that is something that is positive to come from it. This had already started growing when I repotted it, but it has continued to grow since. So this one is doing fairly well. I also purchased in that order another Hoya. That is the Hoya Michelle. Now this one I did purchase as a single leaf cutting. It is fairly well rooted. It has continued to root since I got it, and like the Batcave, it has grown a really long runner. Now, I don't have enough trellises to give every Hoya with a runner a trellis right now, so I will be prioritizing the Batcave over this one, but I did, based off of the advice somebody gave me in a previous video, pot up my other Michelle and put it outside. So this could be a nice experiment to see which one grows better, the one outside or the one in here. I did fertilize it. I've been monitoring this vine closely, so we'll see what happens. It seems very happy and healthy thus far, so I'm just hoping it continues. I did purchase one Hoya in person at the very beginning of May, right before I went off to Pennsylvania, and that is my Hoya GPS 7950, also known as Hoya species Saba. This doesn't really look like it, but it has grown quite a lot in my care, and the 2 new leaves are so big. It grew, I think, this was the newest leaf, and it did have one of these two leaves, I think, and it grew another one. I think it was this one that it grew. Then it grew these, and it is working on a very tiny baby leaf right there. So this has grown quite a lot for me since I got it in early May, and I'm very happy I did. This is a gorgeous plant. I regret nothing about purchasing this. It was from Tillery Street Plant Company in Austin. I love they don't get a ton of Hoyas all the time, but when they do, they get really good ones. And this has just been such a treat. I mean, these new leaves are perfect. It lives on my windowsill, top shelf, getting direct sun in the morning with the east facing window, and it's just loving life. I do have yet to fertilize it. I'm just realizing that, so maybe I will do that right after this video, give it a little bit more of a boost, because once it gets this leaf out of the way, there's no active growth point and there's no extra nodes really for it to grow leaves onto. So we really want it to push out another vine hopefully soon. So I think fertilizer will help that with the next step with this plant, but it acclimated very well to my environment. It went from a very humid greenhouse just to regular room humidity, and it is doing super well in my care. So I'm very pleased with the progress this plant in particular is making. It is easier when you buy a plant in person versus one that you get in the mail. There's just a lot less stress that goes into it usually. And this was already an established plant, whereas everything else I got was a cutting, some rooted, some not. So this is just something you can see what happens if you buy a plant that's already established. You're more likely to have more growth quicker, and this has certainly proved that point. I did have another order from Sam's Hoyas in the past 3 months. I got I actually have 2 more orders from him to go through. This one I got 3 plants, but 2 of them were the exact same type of plant. So I did end up potting them together, and that is going to be the Hoya Kalana Albow. I potted them up together in this pot. The roots were doing fairly well, but it has started rooting more. There are new roots. They're much whiter. The older roots are green. There's some at the bottom of the cup as well. So it's really spreading out in the cup. There has been new growth down here, a new growth point activated, and there have been a couple leaves growing out of that. So I'm very happy to see that it's doing well. Unfortunately, at the top of both of these plants, there is no active growth point. So this is the only active growth I have at the moment. But I love to see another vine forming on this. I think it's going to be a really beautiful full trailing plant. That's my goal for this one, is to leave it trailing. I don't think I've seen trellised Houseplants before, but I just really like it trailing. It's adorable. The small round leaves are super cute, and it's not too root bound with these 2 plants in one pot that it's gonna inhibit their growth. I also fertilized it, so that is gonna help quite a bit. Unlike the other plant that I got from him, I do need to repot this one, I think. I just have yet to do it. I run out of decorative pots, but I did put this in a decorative pot that fits the smaller pot. So this was the Hoya species Sumatra. It did have active growth. It had one of these leaves was just starting to grow, and then one grew in my care. The active growth point that it had here did die off, but it shot out a new vine down here. So I'm hoping with the support of this plant stake, I can just continue to get this plant to grow. It seems fairly happy in its environment right now, but I would like more leaves because it's so cute. Worst case, I really could just start it over. There are multiple nodes that I could take cuttings from, but I don't think that's gonna be necessary. I've only had this for about a month, and it's maybe a month and a half, and it's doing very well, and I just love it. I'm no regrets about purchasing this one, even though I knew nothing about it when I got it. And a vine is still growth. It's not ideal. Of course, we want vines and leaves and to immediately put a plant on a trellis, but I think this one is doing really well. I was having issues with it drying out and falling over a lot, which is why I gave it this plant stake, and that has helped out along with the decorative pot. So I think it'll be a little bit happier now that it is more stable and not just falling over in my cabinet all the time. That leads me to my recent unboxing from Plantita's Dreams, and I know I got these plants very recently, but most of them were unrooted. So I feel like it's fair to give an update here because you have a little bit more of a risk with unrooted cuttings, especially with Hoya. It seems like I do much better with purchasing an unrooted philodendron cutting or monstera cutting, but with Hoya, it seems to be more risky. So I wanted to give this update just to show you how these unrooted cuttings are doing from this particular seller. And I think that'll be helpful to tell how reputable the seller is. So I got 4 different Hoya lacanosa cuttings from Plantita's Dreams, and I'm happy to report they are all doing very well. I have not lost a single leaf, which is shocking to me because with a cutting that goes through that much stress, I typically expect to lose leaves. So this one was the SR2010-055, lots of numbers, and I think it is rooting slightly. There's like little bits of roots, more so on the top. You can see it is in 100% humidity in a prop box, so there's a root there, and up top, no roots down under the surface yet, but it seems very stable. It doesn't appear to be wilting at all, so it is enjoying the humidity. And honestly, some of these roots right here could go down into the pot, so I'm very happy about that one. I also have roots forming on the Lacanosa Asami. It's actually rooting so well that I don't think I can take it out of the pot, but you can see roots right there in the back, and then there's roots that are going into the moss with this one, so I can't really grab it. This is rooting the best. I think it was starting to root when it was shipped to me, so it has a little bit of a head start, but it's doing very well. It's been very stable, so I'm happy with the progress of that one especially. I do think it's doing the best out of all 4 that I got. This was the Lacanosa Mr. Tent, and it does have some roots growing above the surface with the nodes here and just the stem, and it has some growing in the pot. That one's probably the easiest to see. So it's got quite a lot of root growth happening. The single node cutting has no growth yet in terms of roots, but this is the one that had new growth, so I was watching this one the most closely, and it is rooting along very nicely. Finally, I have the Lacanosa Tove. I do have root growth on both cuttings, both in the pot with the moss. Let's see if I can show it off on camera. So there's a root right there. The other one I do believe is underneath the moss, but this is growing really nicely with new roots. It's only been a week or 2, so I think I'm happy with this. They were fresh cuts right before they were shipped to me. They went through the stress of cutting and shipping, and then I put them immediately in a prop box. So they have been getting over that stress as well as rooting. I'm happy with the amount of root growth I've seen so far. Is it the fastest in the world? No, but everything is stable and I have not yet lost a leaf from those. I did unfortunately lose the leaf from the species Para Albow on camera, but the vine is growing and there is a new leaf growing right there. So this plant clearly didn't go through the most stress. You always have a risk with plants that have new unhardened leaves, especially Hoya, when you're shipping them. So I wasn't shocked that it lost that new growth, but I am happy to see that it is still actively growing and clearly didn't go through too much shock that it wanted to kill off the active growth point. So I'm very happy with that. I was worried about this one the most out of the 5 plants I got from Plantita's Dreams, but this plant seems perfectly happy, so I'm feeling a lot more optimistic about it now. Finally, I have plants that I got from Sam's Hoyas very recently, so I was debating whether or not to show them off. The ETS that I got is not grown at all, so I left that one out, but the Lacanosa Minera has new growth. There's itty bitty baby leaves right there on the cutting, so those did not die off in shipping. There is also a little bit of root growth right here, so it is going along steadily. I feel like it's not even been a week since I got these when I'm filming this right now, so there's not too much to report on this one, but there's actually quite a lot to report on the carrii. I was very pleasantly surprised to see how much the vine is growing. There are baby leaves right here, and I'm a little nervous because I am leaving for a week starting tomorrow. So this video will come out actually while I'm gone, and this is not going to get watered for that whole week. So I might water it a little bit extra while I'm home today. The roots are also doing very well. There's new root growth right here. Just to hope and pray that it doesn't abort these 2 baby leaves. But the vine itself has grown quite a lot in the few days that I've had this plant. So I figured it was worthwhile to report on this as well, especially since many of you in the comments of the video where I unboxed this said that you have had similar issues with carrii. So it makes me feel good that I'm not alone, but I am happy to report that this one went through no shock at all and is immediately growing. So I'm feeling at least more optimistic that I can keep a carrii alive. And maybe I just got a bad one the first time, you know? It happens, but this one hopefully we'll turn that luck around. So that is it for my most recent plant purchases over the past 3 months. I really like Hoya, if you can't tell, and they're all doing well. I'm very pleasantly surprised. I haven't lost anything, just a couple leaves on the one plant. Everything else is doing exceptionally well given the short period of time that I've had everything. If you guys want, I can do another update in a few months about these specific plants if you want to see that, or if you want to continue to see updates of recent purchases a few months later. If that's helpful to you, let me know. Let my squirmy Saffron know. She is just happy to be alive today. She is just doing the most, having a great time. But if you like this video, make sure to give Saffron and I here a thumbs up down below and subscribe so you don't miss anything from us here on the channel. Thank you again for watching, and we will catch you in the next one.